There is a $2 rubber component hiding inside your transmission right now. Most mechanics have never even heard of it. And when it fails, it blows the fill plug clean out of the housing, lets water and road grime pour straight into the internals, and kicks off a chain reaction that can destroy a $5,000 transmission in a matter of weeks. That is just one of 9 maintenance tricks that separate the CVTs that die before 100,000 miles from the ones quietly pushing past 300,000. Your dealer knows every single one of these tricks. They will never bring them up because they make more money when your transmission fails. Now, I know some of you clicked on this because you just got a scary repair quote. Maybe your Nissan Rogue started shuddering last week. Maybe your Subaru Outback is making a noise you have never heard before. And it is not your fault. The information you needed was deliberately kept from you. Before you spend a single dollar, let me tell you a quick story. A guy walks into a transmission shop convinced his CVT is finished. The car is shuddering. The RPMs are flaring for no reason. The shop quotes him $4,200 for a full replacement. But a technician with actual diagnostic experience plugs in a scanner and finds the real problem in 5 minutes. A single sensor, $40, 10 minutes of work. The transmission was never broken. I am going to tell you exactly which sensor it was later in this video because there is a very good chance yours is doing the same thing right now. We are starting with the free stuff you can do today in your driveway and building toward the single most destructive lie your manufacturer ever printed in your owner's manual. Let us get into it. Trick number 9 costs $0 and takes about 2 seconds of patience. Your daily driving habits. I will be honest, I was doing at least 2 of these wrong myself before I understood how a CVT actually works. The biggest one is shifting between reverse and drive without coming to a complete stop. Almost everybody does this. You are backing out of a parking spot, the car is still rolling backward, and you shove it into drive. In a regular automatic with planetary gears, you can get away with that for 100,000 miles. But a CVT transfers torque through a steel belt squeezed between 2 variable pulleys. When you slam a direction change through that system before the car has stopped, you send a shock straight through the belt, the clutches, the mounts. Every single time. Full stop, brake, then shift, 2 seconds. The second one genuinely surprises people. Coasting in neutral. A lot of drivers think they are saving gas by popping into neutral on a downhill. Sounds logical. But when your transmission is in drive and you lift off the throttle, the engine keeps spinning the internal oil pump. That CVT pump is what keeps every belt surface and every bearing lubricated. The moment you shift to neutral, the pump slows down, but the wheels are still spinning the internals at road speed. You now have critical parts moving without adequate oil. And the worst part is most modern vehicles already cut fuel injection entirely when you coast in drive. Neutral coasting saves you nothing. It just starves your transmission. Stay in drive. Cold starts catch a lot of people too. On a cold morning, do not sit and idle for 10 minutes like your grandfather told you. 30 seconds is enough to stabilize oil pressure. Then, drive gently. Keep the RPMs low. The reason this works better than long idling is that driving actually circulates fluid through the torque converter and heat exchanger much faster than sitting still. Your fluid warms up quicker and builds its protective film sooner. And one more for anyone towing with a CVT. Temperature thresholds you need to treat as hard limits. 200 degrees Fahrenheit, ease off the throttle. 220, pull over. 230 sustained, stop towing immediately. Your factory warning light often will not activate until damage has already started. A $10 Bluetooth OBD adapter shows you this number in real time. If you tow, that is not optional. Everything I just told you is completely free. But none of it matters if the wrong fluid is inside your transmission right now. And the fluid situation in the CVT world is where things start getting ugly. This brings us to trick number 8. Most people think transmission fluid is just transmission fluid. You grab a bottle that says CVT on the label and pour it in. That approach has killed more CVTs than I can count. CVT fluid is not just a lubricant. It generates the squeezing force that holds your belt against the pulleys. It contains specific chemicals that create the traction the belt needs to grip without slipping. And it is the primary way your transmission removes heat. Get any one of those wrong and the belt loses grip. Once that starts, you are on a countdown. The single most dangerous fluid mistake in the CVT world is mixing up Nissan NS2 and NS3. These are completely different products that look almost identical on the shelf. Some owners have used NS3 in an NS2 transmission without immediate problems, which creates a dangerous false sense of safety. Over time, the different chemistry reduces the grip the older clutch packs depend on. Shudder, slipping, premature wear that shows up months later when you have completely forgotten you ever changed the fluid. And it is not just Nissan. Subaru requires genuine Subaru CVT fluid, or documented Idemitsu equivalents. Honda specifies HCF2. Mitsubishi uses Diaqueen. Cross any of these, and you are gambling with the most expensive component in your drivetrain. Now, one thing most people do not realize about Idemitsu: they are not just an aftermarket brand. Idemitsu actually manufactures the factory fill fluid for several major automakers. That expensive bottle of genuine Nissan or Honda fluid you buy at the dealer, Idemitsu probably made what is inside it. Their retail bottles carry the same OEM specifications at a lower price. Just make sure the label explicitly states your exact transmission spec before you buy. That is the only thing that matters. Now, I know this next part is going to start an argument in the comments, and honestly, I am fine with that. AmSoil. A lot of people swear by it for CVTs, and I get the appeal. It has excellent heat resistance and viscosity stability. But I have seen too many Honda and Subaru owners switch to AmSoil and develop tachometer flutter and perceived slip that only went away after switching back to OEM or Idemitsu. The problem is, AmSoil changes the frictional behavior that those specific transmissions were designed around. It does not mean the product is bad. It means the interaction between fluid chemistry and CVT clutch material is incredibly specific. What works perfectly in a Nissan might cause problems in a Honda. So if your CVT is under warranty, do not experiment. Stick with OEM or Idemitsu. After warranty, that is your call. But have a plan to switch back if anything feels off. And while we are on the subject, additives like Lubiguard CVT Recharge come up in every forum discussion. They are not cures for mechanical wear. Any improvement you feel is almost always the fresh fluid and clean filter doing the work. If your belt is worn or your clutch packs are damaged, no additive is going to reverse that. Save the money for correct fluid and proper service. I know what some of you are thinking. I do not even know what fluid is in mine right now. Good, that is the right response. Look up your VIN. Find out exactly which fluid your transmission needs. Not the one the parts store clerk guessed. The exact specification. Write it down. Tape it inside your glove box. But even perfect CVT fluid cannot protect you from what is happening inside your transmission right now. Your CVT sheds microscopic metal particles with every mile you drive. And those particles are trying to tell you something. If you know how to read them, you can catch a major failure while it is still a $50 fix. That is trick number 7. There is a $5 diagnostic tool that most mechanics never bother to use. Not a scanner, not a computer, a magnet. A magnetic drain plug catches the metal particles your transmission produces during normal driving. When you learn to read what it collects, you get a direct look at the health of your CVT. Fine dust that smears between your fingers like a paste is normal wear. Expected. No panic. But hard, gritty, shiny fragments that do not smear are pieces of gears, shafts, or bearings breaking apart. That demands immediate attention. One tip that catches first-timers off guard. When you install a magnetic plug on a transmission with a long history, that first pull is going to look terrifying. Do not panic. The magnet is collecting years of particles all at once. The real value comes from the second and third pulls. Clean the magnet, drive. Check again. Decreasing debris means you are clearing old contamination. Increasing debris, especially those hard fragments, means something is actively failing. For $30, you can go even deeper. Laboratory oil analysis. You mail a sealed sample to a lab and they tell you exactly which metals are wearing and whether the fluid CVT still has its protective chemistry intact. One sample is a snapshot. Multiple samples over time is a crystal ball. Now, before we keep going, if this has already changed how you think about your CVT, do me a quick favor and hit the like button. Not for me. When you do that, YouTube shows this to other CVT owners who are about to get ripped off on a repair they might not need. Worth a tap. So you are checking your magnet, you are seeing particles. But where are those particles going when the magnet does not catch them? That question leads straight into trick number 6. Particles break free from CVT, clutch surfaces, and bearings. They circulate through the fluid. Your factory transmission filter catches some, but many are small enough to slip right through. Those loose particles scratch up the tiny channels inside your valve body and pump. Scratched channels leak pressure. Lower pressure means the belt gets squeezed less tightly. Less squeeze means more slip. More slip means more heat and more particles. The cycle feeds itself until the transmission needs a full replacement. Rebuilders call it the contamination feedback loop. They will tell you that swapping in new parts without cleaning out the old debris is a waste of money. The leftover particles chew up the new surfaces immediately. But you can break this cycle. Inline filters like the Magnifine combine a magnet with paper media to catch particles your factory screens miss. They include a bypass valve so they cannot starve the pump. $20 part. Best insurance you will ever buy for your drivetrain. But if you think contamination is bad, wait until you hear how most shops are actually changing your fluid. The procedure itself can cause more damage than leaving the old fluid in. Trick number 5. Picture this. You take your Nissan Altima or your Subaru Crosstrek to a shop for a fluid change. They drain it, fill it back up, hand you the keys. But what they did not mention is they only replaced about 30 to 50% of the total fluid. The torque converter alone holds a massive chunk of your transmission's total fluid volume, and a standard pan drain does not touch it. So the old degraded fluid sitting in there immediately mixes with the fresh stuff the moment you start the engine. That is why a single drain and fill is never enough. And if they did a machine flush instead of a drain and fill, they may have just blasted years of settled gunk straight into the most sensitive passages in your transmission. That is how a routine CVT fluid change turns into a full replacement. The right way is staged: drain and fill. Drain. Refill with the correct fluid. Drive for a while. Drain and refill again. 3 cycles is the starting point. Each cycle replaces a larger percentage without the risks of pressurized flushing. One more thing on fluid service that even some professionals get wrong: the hot level check. CVT fluid expands as it warms up, so the level reads differently at different temperatures. You have to check at the exact temp the manufacturer specifies. Overfill creates foam and air bubbles in the hydraulic system. Underfill starves the cooling. The margin is tighter than you think. And if you are paying a shop to do this, ask them 2 questions before they touch your car. What method are you using? Drain and fill or flush? And what is the exact fluid designation you are putting in? If they hesitate on either one, find a different shop. Even with perfect fluid changed perfectly, there is one enemy that overpowers everything: heat. And there is a tiny valve inside your cooling circuit that may have already failed without any warning. Trick number 4. Heat destroys CVTs faster than anything else. Unlike a traditional automatic where metal gears lock together, a CVT relies entirely on friction between the belt and the pulleys. When temperature climbs, the fluid thins out, the belt loses grip, and slipping generates even more heat. A single afternoon of heavy towing in hot weather can push this past the point of no return. This is how Nissan Pathfinder and Murano owners have lost transmissions at 70 or 80,000 miles with 0 prior symptoms. The part that surprised me the most when I first learned about it is the transmission cooler bypass valve. This tiny device controls whether fluid flows through the cooler or skips it entirely. On cold starts, it lets fluid warm up fast by bypassing the cooler. Smart design. But when this valve fails stuck open, your fluid never gets cooled. Temperatures climb and your dashboard shows you absolutely nothing. Diagnosing it takes about 30 seconds. At operating temperature, feel both the cooler supply line and the bypass line. Same temperature or the bypass is hotter, your valve is stuck. I have seen owners drive for years without knowing this was happening. Years. One more cooling nightmare worth knowing about. When a radiator-mounted heat exchanger cracks internally, engine coolant and transmission fluid mix. You will see milky fluid or oily residue in the coolant reservoir. If that ever happens, stop driving immediately. That is not something you monitor. That is something you fix right now. Remember the guy from the beginning of this video? The one who almost spent $4,000 replacing a perfectly good transmission? Trick number 3 is why that almost happened. The sensor that saved him was the throttle position sensor. It tells your transmission computer how much throttle you are requesting. The computer uses that signal to figure out how hard to squeeze the belt. Even a tiny voltage glitch, a brief dropout, a noisy signal, creates symptoms that feel exactly like a dying CVT: shuddering, harsh shifts, RPM flares. And most standard OBD scanners cannot catch these fast glitches. You need one that shows real-time voltage during a throttle sweep. But the throttle position sensor is just one example. Engine problems routinely disguise themselves as transmission failures, a degraded catalytic converter, a misfiring cylinder, a failing mass airflow sensor. All of these change the engine's actual power output without the transmission computer knowing. The result feels like slipping, surging, or harsh engagement, and it all disappears the moment the engine issue is fixed. Honda CR-V and Civic owners have seen this exact pattern with failing oxygen sensors triggering phantom CVT symptoms. Before you spend thousands on a transmission, spend 20 minutes checking the engine. And one more thing that catches people off guard after a fluid service. Your transmission computer has been adapting to the old fluid for thousands of miles. When you put fresh fluid in, the viscosity and grip are different. The computer needs time to recalibrate. You might feel some weird shifting for the first few hundred miles. That is normal. A battery disconnect can speed this up by forcing the computer to start fresh. But either way, give it time before you panic. Now we arrive at trick number 2. And this might be the most surprising entry on the entire list. The breather vent. Your CVT is a sealed housing. As fluid heats up, it expands and pressure builds inside. The breather vent lets that pressure escape. It is a tiny hole or tube, usually near the fill plug, and in some designs it includes a small rubber diaphragm. When that vent clogs or the diaphragm sticks, pressure has nowhere to go. The path of least resistance becomes the fill plug. It pops out. Water, dirt, and road grime pour straight into the internals. The fluid loss triggers starvation. The contamination accelerates wear. And within weeks, you are looking at a total replacement. 9th generation Honda Civic and Fit owners have reported this repeatedly. Mazda Speed 3 owners traced spongy shifts to stuck diaphragms trapping pressure inside the case. Reports suggest the plug can pop within 100 miles if the vent is blocked. The fix takes 5 minutes. Blow compressed air through the passage. Replace the diaphragm if it is stuck. Some owners route an extended vent tube to a higher spot and add a water trap made from a clear inline fuel filter. $2 in parts. 5 minutes. Done. And the frustrating part is several manufacturers have actually issued service bulletins recommending vent cap cleaning. They know this matters. But most owners and shops never check it. A $2 part standing between you and a destroyed transmission. That is what this whole video comes down to. The small stuff no one tells you. Which brings us to the final trick. Number 1. I saved this for last because it is not a maintenance procedure. It is a lie. The single most destructive lie in the entire automotive industry. Lifetime fluid. Your manufacturer printed those 2 words knowing exactly what they mean. And what they mean is not what you think. Lifetime does not mean the fluid lasts forever. It means the manufacturer decided the fluid will outlast their definition of the transmission's useful life. Their definition, not yours. They redefined the word lifetime to mean the amount of time before they expect you to buy a new car. Technicians have picked apart this language for years, and the conclusion is brutal. Lifetime fluid assumes perfect conditions. No towing, no mountain driving, no heavy traffic, no extreme heat. Basically no real-world driving whatsoever. The owners who believed that word are the ones replacing transmissions at 70 or 80,000 miles. This is why Nissan extended their CVT warranty to 10 years and 120,000 miles on certain Altima, Sentra, and Rogue models. They knew. CVT fluid breakdown is not just a mileage problem. It is a time problem. The base oils degrade. The protective chemistry depletes. This happens whether you drive 50,000 miles a year or 5,000. The fluid deteriorates silently. And by the time you feel symptoms, the damage has been building for thousands of miles. The owners who report 300,000 miles on their CVTs are overwhelmingly the ones who changed fluid when it still looked fine. Not when it was dark, not when symptoms appeared. They changed it because they understood that waiting for symptoms means waiting too long. The community that has been tracking these transmissions for years recommends intervals of 25,000 to 40,000 miles depending on conditions. Hot climate, towing, mountain driving, heavy traffic, all severe use. Check your CVT fluid. Fresh CVT fluid is pink or light red. If yours has turned dark brown or smells burnt, you are already thousands of miles past due. And always use the correct fluid verified by VIN. Nothing else matters if the fluid is wrong. So here is your checklist. Full stops before shifting. Coast and drive. Never neutral. Use the exact fluid your VIN says. Install a $5 magnet and photograph it every service. Add an inline filter. Change fluid the right way, staged, drain, and fill, not flush. Monitor your CVT temperature with a $10 OBD adapter. Check the engine before blaming the CVT. Clean the breather vent. And above all, reject the word lifetime. The owners who reach 300,000 miles are not lucky. They are informed. And they refused to accept the most expensive marketing lie in automotive history as maintenance advice. Now you have every tool they used. But everything we covered today assumes warm weather driving. There is one cold weather mistake that destroys more CVTs than anything on this list, and most owners have no idea they are making it every single morning. That video is right here. Drop a comment and tell me how many miles are on your CVT right now. And if you have tried any of these, let me know which one made the biggest difference.